Wow, in this continuation of my sort of hopefully beginner's guide to summer pruning, I'm going to touch just briefly on some of those rules. And I know there's no rules, stop throwing things at me, but we've heard bonsai principle of thirds, the thickness of the trunk versus the height of the tree, the width of the pot versus where you put the tree, loads of stuff like that. And I'll tell you what, as a beginner, that used to confuse me to pieces, and I'd end up removing branches and doing stuff that, although it may have conformed with the rule book, made an absolute mess of any future tree I developed. So I'll tell you what, we're going to have a bit of a light-hearted look of these thirds, two-thirds, eye poker branches, and we're also finally going to catch up with the stuff I promised to do in earlier videos with that Hawthorn clump and a couple of things we were going to do with some Italian alder. And then hopefully that's going to finish us with summer pruning tips from me. But you know what? There's loads of interesting stuff, particular this rule of thirds. What on earth is it? Hi, it's Xavier. Welcome to a bonsai retreat, and yeah, that was a word full, and you know, rules and stuff like that in this modern day seem to go out the window, but you know, they are fundamentals, they do have principles, and part of it is about the aesthetic. It's i.e. what's pleasing to the eye when you look at it. Visually, a feast, a delectable delight. Gosh, I'm becoming a bit of a wordsmith. But no, seriously, we've got this Chinese elm in front of us. It's a corkbark Chinese elm. It's about 8 years old, and like many of the elms in my garden, it's grown from cuttings. And do you know what? I've pulled this out and I love it. The bark has got all textured up and grainy. There's lots of branches certainly in the top two-thirds. That'll be important in a minute. And it's interesting. We've also got some leaning trunk. We've got apex coming towards. There's all sorts of interesting things you probably hear quite a lot when you're watching YouTube videos. Well, perhaps not on my videos, but you'll see what I mean in a sec. So, rule of thirds. First of all, let me say, when I say rule, do you know what? Let's use the word guidelines. And guidelines, as we know, can be applied as and when we see fit. Because in some cases, the guidelines just don't apply to the material you have. But let's play the game, shall we? So first of all, thirds. Well, you need to know the height of the tree. Trusty tape measure up to where I think the apex is, and looking at that, it's about 30 centimeters or a foot. And if I look at the rules of, I think they say that on the ideal bonsai, the trunk diameter, the height should be 6 times the trunk diameter. Well, let's check, shall we? The trunk diameter on this is 30. 3 times 6, 18, so it's 180 centimeters. Okay, so that means the tree should be about that height for that diameter. And I mean, proportionally speaking, probably spot on. But it doesn't work that way, does it? Let's be honest, because the only branch I've got at that height is this one and these two here. So if we remove this top, well, this top 10 centimeters, all we're going to be left with is a branch here, and if you take the midline, directly opposite 180 degrees is the only other branch available to us. So apart from the fact that we've got what you call handlebar branches, we'd have that one, and then this one here. Not really going to make much of a tree, is it? So let's re-look at that, shall we? So perhaps to make this a little easier to see, why not bring back this corkbark Chinese elm, again a cutting about 6-7 years old, that was highlighted by Yellow growing bonsai in one of the ones he particularly liked. He did suggest I need to do something with the apex, but again, if we look at this, the height of this is again about 30 centimeters. So the first branch should be this one, then a second branch at anywhere between 120 degrees, that's the other thing they say, 120 degrees between the branches to give you a nice sort of, again, pleasing look to the eye, coming slightly towards you from the midline. Well, that's going to be difficult. We've got absolutely nothing apart from this little one under here, and you start thinking to yourself, I'm a bit confused, how can I follow this? Well, truthfully, if you want to follow all those guidelines, you want to start with your sapling and you want to slowly develop your branches once you've established your height, and you grow your branches at those particular places. And loads of people do it, and it can be done, but do you know what? That's what I've got. So what am I going to do with it? Well, I can follow some of the principles. So the first principle is I do need to establish where my first branch is going to be. And the best way of doing that is I look at my tree that way and have a look at the bird's eye view and try and establish where on the planes I've got different branches, because ideally you want to have a circular rotation of branches going up the tree. Again, one of the things you'll often hear is that at the front you shouldn't have any eye pokers or anything directly coming towards you the first 2/3 of the height. So if the height of this is going to be here, then the first part where I can have branches coming towards me in the apical region, the top third, has got to be up here, so it wouldn't be anywhere here. If my front's going to be here, then my branches have got to be off here. Do you know what? I'm getting confused. Should we go back and just do some basic design my way? Okay, I'm going to apologise. I've taken that probably a bit too lightly, and I know there's a lot of professionals and experienced bonsai practitioners out there who are screaming out at me saying, no, look, these rules apply, they work really, really well, and they help define a really pleasing, good bonsai, one that's show-worthy. And I'm certainly not going to take anything away from that. But you know what? I'm taking this approach from someone who's just got material in front of them. They haven't got loads and loads of experience. They want to know, I'm pruning. What do I want to look at? What do I need to do to make this into something semi-decent, or something that I can look at on my own bench and be really quite happy with? Well, the first thing is, we'll keep saying it. They always say don't tie yourself down to a front, but you know, when you've got a sea of branches like this, it probably helps to tie ourselves to a front. And if we go by the thirds rule, so if our height's going to be about here, I do need to find where my first branch is going to be. And that first branch is going to either be on the left or the right hand side of the tree, normally. 1/3 is this branch, but I've also got other branches and branches coming from branches, and I'm a bit lost. I'm afraid I don't know what to cut off. Well, do you remember if I went back to my basic principles of pruning? First of all, you look at the base, then you clean the trunk, and then you get rid of anything that is obviously wrong, and that is upward growing shoots or anything like that. But you know what? I apply the same principle when I'm a little bit uncertain or unsure where to start, when I deal with removing bigger branches. Because if we look in this, we've got a couple of places where we've got exactly that. We've got 2 or 3 branches coming out from the centre line. They're coming out at weird angles. Well, do you know what I do first? I'm going to decide which of those are completely unnatural from my perspective and which ones I'm going to keep. So if we look, we're happy with the lowest branch, but this one here, it actually comes out from the side there, comes out at the same point as this one here, which is very, very straight and ugly. But if you look at this here, it's actually, there's the center. The main trunk, the main branch itself is actually broken off, and you can see the scar. There's actually 2 side ones that are coming out, one almost perpendicular and this one out at a better angle. Now, for the sort of formalized design, this branch here is actually coming out completely wrong from where it should be, from the actual trunk itself. And again, I keep saying, when I say should be wrong, there is a matter of perspective. But already my argument is that if I need to make a decision, this one is clearly in the wrong position. So with that in mind, I'm going to remove it. Now, I also think this branch here very unnatural, and I don't like it. This is a much more attractive branch, and also this one crosses over ones that are further up and higher above. So I'm already thinking, do I remove that branch? And I'm going to make the answer now. So I've removed these 2 branches, all from the same junction area, based purely on the angle of the line they were coming out from the trunk, or the junction where they were supposed to grow out. Ideally, we want our branches coming out. There's your trunk, it come out directly outwards, as in spokes from a wheel, one spoke at each different height. Then that changes radically the whole perspective of this as a tree, and actually I think gives that trunk line a much more majestic, probably getting closer to Literati style. Again, with things like this, you think, are there any other more branches that are clearly wrong? And I've actually got something here, a little short one, which is coming out from a place that potentially we don't want. So again, I'll say again, it's subjective, but it's looking at the trunk line, looking at the branches, how they radiate out, and removing the ones that are clearly at fault. They're not going to sit right. So get on, we'll do that, and then we'll come back and have another look and see how we can take this step forward, trying to keep the rule of 2/3 or 1/3 in place. If I'm going to keep this branch, then going by the basic principles, we can't have it coming towards us, so it can't be there. So it's either going to have to be to the left that way, in which case I need another branch that's somewhere around about here, that's coming slightly towards us. We've got absolutely nothing till we get to this branch here, so we can't have it on that side. If we have it on that side, well, duh, I'm doing the same thing, aren't I? So unless we want to have a massive negative space or wait for something to grow, ideally the one that we had to remove because it was sticking straight towards us was at the right place. It's this one, but we need it to come out here. And what I do like is I love this trunk line. There's something about it that I find really, really appealing. Now it sounds like I'm going back and forth, and that's because I'm not quite sure. So there is something else I can do straight away. I've got a lot of growth that's getting in the way that I know I'm not going to need. So let's just debizify it. All this stuff here is never going to be wanted. So let's cut it back nice and short, and that will help us, I think, with making more decisions about branches. See, upward ones, no point having them. Upward one, let's get rid of that. This one's going off at some jaunty angle. Jaunty angles are great in the Navy, but not in our bonsai. So we'll cut some of these back. I've just removed that upward one there. But if you look in here, there are loads of buds on the sides. All I really need to do if I want those to activate is come right in here and cut that off. That will then cause these ones here to hopefully bud out. Certainly these ones here. There's another upward one there, let's get rid of that. In fact, we'll get rid of the whole lot, why not? And that's a great big strong length. I won't want that. I'm not going to want all that length. This one under here, I'm probably not going to want all that. Now the other way I help to sort of relieve confusion, and I'll say this now, this is a Chinese elm. With these, I will often cut them right back to just the trunk, and they will send out loads of new shoots. So if you ever remove branches you think, wish I hadn't done that, if you've got a few years, don't worry, they'll grow back, probably in better places. So what I'll often do though is when I'm trying to decide, I've got this branch coming out this way, I've got this branch coming out this way, this one this way, so they're radiating. This one is coming out, but then actually that one is coming out above it, and that one's in line with it. So we've got three all in line and stepping down. That doesn't really look good with a general design. So I've actually got to decide I'm going to remove certainly one of them. That one there, if you look where it is, it's an ideal branch. We want to keep that. So I'm really either going to I've got to keep that one, so I'm either going to take away this one or this one. And if I take away this one here, I've still got one above and below. I'm going to remove that. And I'll say now, all of these, I'm taking the long lengths, and it won't surprise you because it's not like I don't need more trees. Where they're interesting, 2 cuttings, and I will literally, no cutting paste or anything, I've got a bucket down here. You hear me talking about this bucket, and in this bucket I am shoving all these straight in. If they take, brilliant. If they don't, well, who cares? So if you look at it, if we keep this one, we've got that one, sort of back branch, another branch here, we can start having stuff coming towards us here. We've also got this coming slightly towards us, and that's always nice. They always say have a tree coming slightly towards you. It's like it's inviting, it's appealing. That's one of those guidelines, you know. Now say again, they're all principles, guidelines, but you don't have to follow them. But again, so we look at it, I've got my first branch about 1/3 of the way up. I've then got a back branch, a side branch. Generally, again, one of these other things they say is generally the back branch shouldn't be the one at the lowest. Tell you what, I've done so many walks, there's loads of trees with back branches that are the lowest. But going on that option and ignoring that top, then my front opening and engaging towards these 2 branches, this branch is either here or it's got to be, well, potentially you've got a front there if you remove that, and I am seriously considering removing that one there and having the tree at that height. So now again I go in and start trying to define issues that I've got with branches, and again it's straightforward. Branches that are pointing in the wrong direction, and I'm talking about the little secondary ones here. Here's a perfect example. The branch comes out from the centre line of the trunk, subdivides, lots of taper here, we've got lots of little buds here. I like those, the length is far too long, so we'll bring them right back, and I'm looking at those buds. We've got this coming out here, hopefully we'll get a bud from it. I'm not worried about the clutter, but we've got this here coming all the way out across a side branch, and for me the decision is quite easy actually. I'm just going to remove it and come in here. So we've got a length here, we can't go beyond that, which means we're already going to remove that, probably that for now, and like that. In fact, I don't even like those. I don't really like that straight one very much. This is parallel to this. I could actually just remove that whole thing, start again from that. So most of you are going, Zav, you've basically cut it down to a couple of sticks. Chinese elm, you can definitely do this safely. Now what I need to do is apply the same principle to this lovely lower branch, and I can already see I've got a few areas that I can cut back. But this one I may actually leave a bit of green on it, surprisingly, because it is nice to see leaf structure. So I'm going to continue to go on and just cut back the obvious stuff that's wrong before we come back and make the final decisions on higher up the tree. While I'm doing that, let's go back, have a look and see what I did with that hornbeam stump, shall we? Okay, well this one, nothing much to look at, was one that I'd left in a nursery bed and allowed it to grow for 2 or 3 years. We've got quite a thick trunk there. It's probably 3/4 of an inch across, and then we've had a main one come up that I wired upwards, and really I was looking to see whether I could develop something a lot closer in, a little marmay or something like that. Well, like a lot of the things that I'm just playing around with, and I can lose track of stuff, and this certainly isn't one that's been in the top 10 of my favourite development trees. As a result, you can see there's some wire scars. So we're going to get the wire off, but then in terms of the technique, exactly the same. Base, suckers and shoots, move our way up, get rid of 2's and get rid of 3's and 4's, any branches we definitely don't want. At this stage, it's far too early to tell. I think we're going to be growing a great big clump from down there. And again, if we look, I've noticed already that there's a lot of mildew. Certainly, I mean, you can see this is the sort of mildew often you get it on your oaks, but definitely on the hawthorns. And in fact, as we work our way up, I can see also not only the mildew, but if we look on this leaf here, there is the rust spore. If we turn it over, it hasn't yet opened up with those little hairy bits, so it's not yet ready to puff onto the world, so we need to get rid of those leaves like that, get rid of those, burn them. Well, I've cleaned it up, and I think this is another problem that many of us face as hobbyists, or when we're just starting and we get this material from the nursery, and we put plants into the ground without a lot of thought as to what's going to happen next, is we create something that really nothing can happen next. And that's not to say I've given up on this, but I've cleaned it all up, and I see two options really. If we get in close, I could actually remove all of this and continue to grow this as the tree, and for me that's probably going to be the option because I've potentially got such a lovely big base down here. Or I try and build a clump out of these and remove this one entirely. And the reason why I'd say that this one here would have to go is basically the disparity in the sizes of the trunks that are with it. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 nice ones here that go around this, and then this one, this great big one which is twice the size, is actually coming from right down the base here. It's just not going to look right. I can't imagine a clump ever forming like that. So for me, and again I'll say to it, everyone has their own way of dealing with stuff. I'm going to remove all of these. I'm going to saw this down and then leave this in here and see if I can develop something from that single trunk. Just want to neaten the cut edge to help the healing. Both Yella and Adam of Notion Bonsai hate that I do things like these on a swinging turntable, and do you know what? It's an absolute nightmare. I really shouldn't. But anyway, let's get this cut edge, and then with a bit of putty from Notion Bonsai, thank you Adam, I'm going to I don't know if you can see, but there's red in there. I've got a funny feeling there'll be blood when I take that off. So that's going to need to be cleaned and disinfectanted as well. Probably want to put some more wire on that actually, but for now I'm going to let that continue. I could even take that off actually. Yeah, see what happens. That's my solution for that. And obviously nice bit of liquid fertilizer. Should we have a look and see how bad this is? I fear for my life. I'm bleeding. At least my thumb's not coming off. Okay, so tell you what, let's go back a couple of days and have a look and see what I did with that Italian alder with the wire on. That one's going to be an interesting project. Literally just got start the indentation just here, and you can just see it's in by 2 or 3 mil. Very obvious there, but with this bark I find it'll bark up really nicely. That'll heal up and be hard to see within a couple of years time. But you know, you've just got to stay on top of it and don't assume that you keep wire on for 8 weeks. If you get a good growing season, you might need to get it off quicker. And then really all I'm going to do is clean up stubs, have a look for bugs and insects, but remove some big leaves, this big growth out here. Clearly I'm not going to want all this. There's a nice bud there and there, so we'll cut back to that. Underneath we've got this one down here. Unless I was going to do a cascade, so I don't want that one really, get rid of that. That could be a nice little bud eventually. In fact, if you look closer in, there's this bud here. I think I'm going to go for this bud here. I'm going to remove all of that. It's always the same, you sort of take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, certainly with the deciduous as you build it. Not entirely sure, so for now I'll just take it back off to there. Base of the leaves, just a bit of whitening, and there's some bugs right in close to the leaf points. But so that's that Italian alder sorted. Not that bothered about the wire scars. have noticed I've got some of that Scotch moss growing in here, which spreads like the weed that it is, so we really want to pull all that out. And it must be warm weather still because we've got the lawnmowers out. So I'm going to keep doing this, and then once I've got all the moss out, I'll give it a feed. We don't want to be feeding the moss, do we? Okay, well, before most of you pick your jaws off the floor, yeah, I've taken a load more off, and despite me saying I wasn't going to prune it right back, as you can see, those are basically being pruned back to twigs, matchsticks. I do feel confident that they're actually going to prune out, and it'll be interesting for me to show you this in another 6 or 7 weeks' time. It's quite an interesting design because if the front's going to be there, I just think the angle between this one and this one is almost too closed. And for me, I keep thinking, I wonder how it would look if I removed that branch. I'm going to do it. And I know there's, I reckon at least half of you wouldn't do this. Now, doesn't that change the whole line of that tree? In fact, it's starting to, I've always liked that trunk, and the more I look at it, I can almost see a very, very tight, compact, willowy, sort of very, very feminine form. I still like it. I imagine these branches coming out a bit, this bunching up. Just need something to grow this way, but I still like the form of that. Okay, well, I've got some of the putty in there that I get from Notion Bonsai. It's a nice brown colour actually, and I nearly removed another branch then. I nearly removed another branch. Should we leave it at that? I think we've removed more than enough, and I just love that central core. If all the branches are removed, I could grow them all again. And again, I say it time and time again, with my Chinese elms, back in 2016, 2017, the ones I purchased, that's pretty well what I did. Took them all the way back to the trunk and regrew what I wanted. And it's surprisingly, 2 or 3 years, if you just let them grow out, they thicken quite quickly. Anyway, along the way, whether you like what I've done with that or not, I've still gone through my basic principle of how I approach a tree that has loads of foliage, loads of lovely branches, and reduce it to a stick. If you like that method, follow it. No, seriously, this will work out well. Tell you what, let's have a look at that one that I showed you earlier, because there was only one thing I needed to do with it. In fact, let's remind you of it before I get the clippers onto it. Now, I've stared at this one quite a number of times, and I know Yella said he really liked it, but said I should take the top off. And again, it's still confusing. That's why it's remained like this for a while. So I go back to the first principles we've just talked about. How can I make this decision process easier for me? Well, first of all, I have a look down, and this lowest branch is quite close to another one. Now, if you look at the way the orientation is, one of them isn't coming out sort of perpendicular from the center line. There's one above that's coming out nicely, but there's this one here, which is totally wonky. So because of that, I'm going to get rid of it. Now, the other issue we've got to deal with, let's ignore this. I can cut some of this back, but if we follow the general rule, the general principles of taper, as we go up, as it gets, it should narrow and narrow and taper. Here, we've got pencil thickness, pencil thickness, pencil thickness, and there's not a lot of taper. So this in particular isn't good, and this length here certainly isn't good. So I need to do some immediate work on that. Do we remove all of this? All of this? That'll make a lovely cutting. That's quite a long branch. I mean, buds will come from back here. I could make this up here, could become the new leader, cut all that top off, reduce that right back. If I wired that down, I'm going to whack some wire on that. I've got an idea. And if that idea is right, we may lose all of these lower branches. Go and get a coffee, and I'll show you in a minute. Okay, well, there you go. Completely took everything off the lower. I've applied some wire up to the top ones and bring some downward sloping, and again I put a bit of downward and forward on movement on that, and I don't know, I see the front potentially around here, or there is another option. I am thinking that I quite like somewhere around there. Again, this is all about getting the skeletal structure. I removed so much, and probably 4/5 of what I removed were branches that were already misshapen, coming out at the wrong angles, so they didn't even have to make decisions whether they were going to be good or not. They were always going to be bugbear branches. I removed them. You may look at this and say, gosh, you need some more to grow. Well, guess what? Chinese elm, I keep saying to you, that will put out loads of buds in response to this work. So there you go. I didn't even envisage this being Literati style. I could actually put wire around that and bend a little bit of movement into it if I wanted, but for now I'm happy to leave that. I could see this part being shortened, this part being shortened, but they're decisions I can make at a later stage. And hopefully what I've shown you with these two elms is the way you can approach bigger branch selection and removal, and it comes down to the same principle. Remove first what you know can't work, is wrong, or is clearly breaking the guidelines. Love doing that. May not be your favourite yet, but I tell you what, in a few more years I think you'll be liking this one. So hopefully you've enjoyed that. We've pretty well finished 3 different episodes, all to do with real easy 3-step principle to summer pruning, either the foliage, the base, or indeed some of the bigger branches. And it's all about getting rid of what is clearly wrong or not needed. Apart from that, enjoy the rest of the summer. Another great video all about Chinese elm. Otherwise, happy bonsai and God bless. Cheers.